It is Thursday, January 28th, 2021, 7:04 p.m. We'll call the meeting with the Economic Development Commission to order. This is actually our first meeting of the year, so happy New Year to everyone. It seems odd at the end of January, but it's our first meeting, so that's good. Good way to kick it off. On from the EDC is myself, Renee Deli, Sharon Rice. First time I get to say that. Laura Parker, Sandy Overhead, Michael Toole, and Denise Luciano. Denise, can you just confirm that you can hear us? I think you're the only one I haven't seen.
Hi, I can hear you, sorry.
Okay, perfect. No, that's okay. Thank you so much. So we have a fairly long agenda tonight. I'm not sure what we'll be able to get through, but there's one item on here with Lucky Green Ladies. We are going to wait until 8:30. I know Alyssa's on with us now, but Nick is also going to join and had a conflict until 8:30. So just so you guys know that when 8:30 comes, we'll try to toggle over to that so that they have an opportunity to update us on what they're presenting tonight. So first, I'd like to welcome Sharon to the Economic Development Commission. She is our last official joinee up to this point. And Sharon, I know that you weren't able to make the meeting in December, and then we rescheduled or canceled our first meeting of this year. So it's nice to have you with us. So happy that you're on board, and certainly look forward to working with you. And I think that your knowledge and your experience with the town is certainly going to help us in some of the areas that we've talked about that we want to make improvements. So welcome to the team, and feel free if you want to say something, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm sorry, to me? Renee?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you? I just said thank you, and I'm happy to be part of the commission.
Excellent. Thank you. I think I might be having some internet problems. I'm having a bit of a delay. So if that keeps happening, let me know. And additionally, Christine DeBoer is on with us. So Christine is, some of you may have read the email that she sent to us in early January. She and I had a chance to connect a week or maybe a week and a half ago. I'm not sure at this point. But Christine is going to join the EDC as well. It's actually, her appointment is on the agenda for the select board next week. We just couldn't fit it on the agenda last week. So Christine, it's great to have you here. And certainly, in the official capacity after your appointment next week, but Christine will be filling one of the two seats for the alternate membership for the EDC. So great to have you here too.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And if you want to say something, feel free. I know most, I think everybody on here knows Sharon from previous activities. I'm not sure if you know anyone on the EDC, or if you'd like to just give a brief introduction, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm Christine DeBoer. Recently moved back to the town, but I grew up in Norton, went through the school systems, studied at UMass Boston, and then just recently moved back to town. So I'm excited to get back involved because I've always been passionate about the town and everything that's been involved with it. So getting in a more personal aspect of what's going on with everything, especially with the economic development, that's going to be one of the biggest things coming up, I feel like, in the future of the town. So I'm really excited to just be a part of this and see what we got for the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Christine. Appreciate it. Okay, so a couple things on our agenda tonight. We have some updates from the business front and interests. Both two things. Mike is here to talk to us about the special legislation alcohol licenses as a follow-up. And then Michael, I don't know if you have any updates on the Peloton warehouse, but we had that as a placeholder. So why don't I let you go first if you have any updates, and then we can move on to Mike.
No, I did finally get in touch with the real estate manager over at Peloton. And right now they are, he didn't really have a response for me, long story short, but he would keep us in mind. And I did refer him back to us and to Mike if they did need help finding a spot in town and so forth. Paul, I apologize. I should have referred him to you instead of Mike. But
Mike's a decent source to go to.
He
Don't worry,
said,
I'll call Paul and let him know.
without saying it, he said, he pretty much told me that they are so busy that they can't even get out of their own way to even look at new locations, and it's been kind of kicked down the road at this point. So
Did they say, Michael, that they did want something that was already built? They kind of want a more move-in space?
we didn't even get that far, Renee.
Okay.
It was I caught him in between meetings, so I found him on LinkedIn, sent him a message, and then called him, cold called him. And yeah, I think he thought I was his wife or something. He picked up the phone, and I let him off until I started speaking to him. It just kind of he wasn't giving me much, but just kind of right now it's everything's kind of on hold at Peloton.
Okay. Did they say that they have a rush on their inventory because of the free marketing they got from Biden being on his Peloton?
We did. It wasn't even a friendly conversation with that. Like I said, I was pulling teeth. So,
I hear you.
But all I know is you're looking at a 15 to 18 week back order on a system that I know from people that I know that have ordered it.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that. Imagine having such demand in your product that you're 15 to 18 weeks out on a simple merchandise.
Yeah. That tells me they need a much bigger warehouse that Norton can accommodate.
Absolutely.
That we can accommodate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
COVID didn't kill all the business.
Right.
And just so you know, as Mike gives his, I'm going to just, Madam Chair, as you move into the alcohol license, that I'm going to step away and recuse myself from this discussion.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michael. So Mike, why don't we go into that? Let me just kind of bring the group back up to speed. And Sharon, I don't believe that's, I think this was brought up prior to your appointment in December too, but Mike had engaged both the select board and the EDC on the option of us seeking special legislation alcohol licenses, which would allow us to get additional licenses that now are primarily based upon population. So you get, somebody's going to correct me here. I think how many per 5,000? One per 5,000?
One per 5,000, yep.
Okay, and then we have a special license right now at hardware, liquor, what is that?
Produce barn.
Thank you. Jesus, what's wrong? It's been a long week. At the produce barn. So we currently have one special legislation license. Now that won't change. A couple of the questions that we had when we last spoke to Mike were, if we pursue special legislation licenses, would they be changed, or really how would they be impacted if our population goes up over 20,000 and we have another alcohol license based on population? Like what would be the impact of either of those? And the second thing was to be more defined on the districts for the special legislation, because part of this really the justification is to say, that the town can handle additional licenses, but specifically in areas where we don't have representation now. So one of the things that we reviewed, I think there are 4 different liquor stores along the 140 area, from Produce Barn up to, is there one before Produce Barn? But anyway, from Produce Barn, like up near Xfinity Center. So we have multiple licenses in that area. So that was an area that when we discussed with the EDC that we weren't comfortable putting another license there. So his takeaway was just for clarity on the points of how the overall licenses would be impacted, and then also confirming what those districts would be. So Mike, I hope that's a good summary, but please fill in wherever I may have missed.
Yeah, just on the Peloton, I did talk to Jeff O'Neill and told him to reach out to them too. So in case he has space. Yeah, on the liquor licenses, I did talk to the head of the ABCC, and he did say exactly what Renee said, that we have 4 right now based on population, and we have 1 extra license. None of that's affected if we apply for 2 more special legislative licenses. We still keep the 4, and we keep that other legislative license that we received back in 1983 for the produce barn. If we do go over 20,000, we'll get another license. And the other thing we looked at, there's a provision in the ABC rules and regulations that you can get another license if your population, for every $5,000 increase in seasonal population. So we just took a look at Wheaton College, and they're only around 2,600 students on campus and off campus in Norton. So we don't meet that. So that went, we wouldn't receive another license for that. And as Renee was saying, on 123, we have Norton Liquors, we have Produce Barn, and then the gas station, I forget the name of the gas station. So we do have 3 along that. Thanks, Mass Gas. So, you know, we do have 3 along that stretch already. And
Mike, I'm sorry, just to clarify, I think you said 123. That's 140, just to clarify that.
I'm sorry.
That's
Yep.
okay. I get it wrong all the time, backwards.
And the legislature, I did talk to Senator Feeney's office, as we talked before, and they do want you to establish districts where you want them. And when I first brought this forward, it was because I was contacted by an attorney from Sharon that was representing a client that wanted to go into the Blue Star Park. So really the thing for us right now is to figure out, other than the Blue Star, that area up there, you know, 495 east, heading east towards Easton, where else would we want, you know, a district?
I thought that we had talked about either the 123 area towards Attleboro or 140 on the other side of 123.
Right.
So I don't think we have anything there, but that's not really built up as commercial. I mean, other than like what is it, Mike's Pizza that's out there?
Yeah.
I don't know of anything else that's really like a retail establishment. So from a perspective of, you know, being successful in the town, I don't know that would really be positioned well.
Can I just qualify? We're talking about full liquor licenses, not package stores.
We're talking about all alcohol liquor licenses for a store. Yep.
Okay.
And the only other one in that section of town would be the one at the corner of North Worcester and 123.
That's Michelle's, right?
Michelle's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, maybe it's gone now. I haven't been down there. Isn't there one next to Fisherman's 3 on the Attleboro line?
That one's gone, Laura.
It is.
Yeah, I just noticed that the other day it's closed.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say is although the 140 section on the Taunton side of, 123 doesn't have a lot of commercial buildings, it does have a lot of pass through, just traffic to and from, let's say, the industrial park or from the Taunton area to the Attleboro area. So there is some traffic that goes to and from there. So that may be enough to get enough traffic into the business. I don't really know. I'm just going to have to do a research on that, but I just want to make that point. That's all.
Thanks, Denise. So Mike, I know, last time we voted to support it, but we wanted you to come back with this information. So I guess I would ask, is there anybody that doesn't agree that one of those districts would be on the east side of 495, like near 123 heading to Easton? I asked that in the negative, but would there be any objection to that being one of the districts? Okay. So then Denise, to your point, it is a pass through. I just don't know. I don't know. Paul, can you weigh in on kind of your experience in that regard?
What for the Attleboro side, or?
Yeah, the Attleboro side or the other side of 140, the southern side.
Southern.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a preference. I mean, obviously, if you have 495 right there, that's potentially a draw because we don't have in that area, right? We don't have any liquor establishments on 123 north of 495, right? There's nothing over there, so that except potentially if something goes into Blue Star, but I don't know. I mean, I think you're okay either way, but maybe that area up toward 495 north of 495 would be maybe a better location, but you also get a lot of traffic on 123 going, around Attleboro as well. Both of them
Mike-
have a travel.
Paul, just to confirm, there is one wine and beer license
it's a
north
quick
of
stop.
495.
Yep, it's a quick stop on 123 East of Leonard Street in Norton, which was opened in December 1976 by the Rich family.
Thanks,
Okay.
Peter.
And that's the history.
So,
From my own personal experience, I will say that for specialty liquors or beers, I will go out of my way to find a store that carries the things that I want. But if it's just standard, typical stuff, it's about convenience on the way to and from someplace I'm going. Typically.
I feel like this is a repeat of the marijuana conversation. Mike, what are the parameters for identifying a district? Like, could we have something that's as big that identifies 140 and 123 and then 123 on the, I know I'm doing all kind of hand movements that you guys can't see, but 123 on the north side or east side? Jeez.
Yeah, the district would be similar, like when Paul is setting up a zoning district, you'd say from 495 north on 123 to the eastern line. We'd draw up a little map that would show, both sides of the road. And then same thing, if you did 140, you'd show from 123 south on 140 towards Taunton, or if you did Attleboro line up to the intersection of North and South Worcester, if you went down to 123 down there.
And filling out the forms, well, I guess, what do you need from us? Just a support for, because we can certainly support the 3 and then let the select board hash out the rest if we wanted, or if there's a preference to just support 2.
I would think if you can let us know, then we could have something drawn up to bring to the Board of Selectmen the areas that you wanted. Whatever your preference is. If you wanted to bring 3 to them and have them pick 2, could do that too.
Okay, but you can't apply with 3 areas and say it would be like 2 licenses would be in one of these 3 areas or 2 of these 3 areas?
I don't know. I'll check on that.
Okay.
That probably would be difficult, but I'll check on that.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments or areas that you favor over another? Don't all speak at once. Okay, do you guys want to, I'm fine moving forward with those 3 areas that we identified, and then Mike bringing that to the select board. If that sounds good with the group. I don't know if we Mike, I know you don't need a vote on it, but certainly if we want to go around and just voice opinions, or we can take an official vote.
Just quick question, Renee. So I know the 3 areas I'm fine with, but is it for 2 licenses or 3 licenses you're planning to ask for?
2 licenses.
So if for some reason we find out that the license has to be tied to a specific location, and we can't say we want one of these 3 locations, kind of a thing. Like if it has to be directly linked, which one I guess would be eliminate of those three?
I guess that would be something that would be left up to the selectmen to pick two of the three.
Gotcha. All right, sorry, I missed that.
The select board.
Mike, did you have a question, Massini? Okay, I thought you moved in for a question. Okay, do you guys want to, do you want to take, I mean, it isn't official that we have to take a vote, but if there's anyone who would like to voice an opinion in opposition, I certainly want to allow you that. Okay, so Mike, it seems like from our perspective, you have support to move forward with the 3 locations to present to the board.
Okay, great.
Okay, Michael Toole, just want to bring you back. Okay, you're back. So the next area is just an update on marijuana establishments. And I put 3 items in here to talk about as placeholders, and Paul step in on these as needed. So in respect to the current HCA, so we have the 2 HCAs in place. I had sent around documentation in respect to our bylaw and the CCC regulations where our bylaw conflicts with that. So right now, Solar Norton is in the process of doing all of their checks and balances. And what they found is within the bylaw, they can't apply for a building permit until they get a final license. And they can't get a final license until the CCC actually does an inspection of their property and the building that has been built. So we spoke with Amy about changes to the bylaw. It seems pretty simple in respect to us breaking up one area where we say that they need the final license to commence operations and to get the building permit, where we will split that and we'll say they need the provisional license to get the building permit, and then the final license for commencement, as well as what we got from Nick, an occupancy, right? Permit of occupancy. I can't remember what the.
Renee, we're going to need to look at that, because I was earlier before the meeting, I was looking back at the guidelines you passed around, and it said that all permits have to be issued before they issue before the CCC issues their final.
Right.
So I think we need to stay away from saying final certificate of occupancy and just keep it simple that they can apply.
Okay.
Or, and I'll talk to Nick about this, Nick Iafredi, our building commissioner.
Yeah.
Just to say that that they can proceed with building permits essentially after they get the special permit and site plan from the town, but separate it out the way you're suggesting and just keep it more general like that.
Okay. Yeah, let me know if Nick wants anything in there or not, because we can even stick it in a provisional, right?
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Go through a bylaw change, or can that be fixed because it was illegal to begin with?
No, it has to go through a bylaw change. It's not that it's illegal. I wouldn't say illegal. It's just not. Like there's no way they'd ever be able to get the building permit.
Well, that's what I mean. It's not. It's not a real thing. I mean, so Mike, does it still have to be? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Amy said we'd have to update the bylaw.
Really?
Yeah, because she said right now, so the bylaw is clear. They can still proceed with the timeline as noted, because they can get their site plan approval and the special permit with the provisional license. So there's no issue there. By the time that they get the site plan approval and the special permit, it will be months down the road, and then they'll be ready for the building permit. So with assuming that our town meeting takes place in May, like that, we shouldn't impact any of the timelines, but this will be a problem for anyone, right?
No,
like any marijuana retail or any marijuana establishment or MTC.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it could be remedied, because it's a loophole that you can't. It won't move it forward. So it's a loophole that I'm not saying it's illegal. Legal is the wrong word.
It won't perform.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's an incorrect bylaw. So I wasn't sure if it was correctable without a change. Right.
I mean, I'm willing to ask her, but When we talked to her, it was,
I'd push the issue because it's a loophole, right? It should never have been. It should never have been written the way it was because it's a loophole that can't be fixed. It can't be remedied. It can't remedy itself, right? I mean, you can't get an occupancy permit without a license. You can't get a license without an occupancy permit. It's one of those things where you
right.
Well, one thing to keep in
Remedy itself.
mind, we'll be bringing this to the Maytown meeting. That's not going to interfere with their ability to build a building because at that point, if they're lucky, they'll be at the planning board with the special permit and site plan. So, it's probably unlikely in May that they will have had their provisional license and a special permit and site plan. So,
and both of them are building brand new buildings. So it isn't like it's holding up. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right. I get it, Paul. It's just thinking like if it was going to hold up anything, I'd be like, really push the issue, but it really isn't. They're both building new buildings. So those buildings aren't going to be done.
Michael, it would still be an issue, even if it were an existing building, right? Because it still needs to be inspected. But if you can't get the building permit to make the changes that you need to make to outfit it to be an establishment, then you're in the same bucket. So that's why we said it'll impact any project, any marijuana related project in the town. Sorry, I'm just grabbing.
Hold on. Renee, I agree. Hold on a minute. Renee, I really do agree too.
I had something spilling, so I couldn't stop.
No, absolutely.
Trying to clean
It would impact more of someone moving into an existing building, and it impacts them more than right now. It doesn't really impact us because we're building 2 buildings from scratch, and we haven't even broken grounds on those buildings. So we're not even close to an occupancy permit. We can remedy the bylaws properly the way. So okay. All right.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, it's the building permit, Michael. We don't have anything in there right now about occupancy. That was something that Nick had identified and asked us to consider to put in. But it sounds like now Paul's going to have some additional conversation with them, so that may not even go in there.
Yeah, is that redundant? To have it both for building permit and an occupancy? Is that too redundant? I mean,
an occupancy permit is a part of the building permit. It's the closeout. It's the final. You're ready to go. So it's just part of it. So I think if we just again say that they can apply after their provisional and after their special permanent site plan, that they can apply for the building permits.
Okay.
That should be fine. And then, as they get their building built, they'll apply for their final approvals from the CCC. But they do a walkthrough. I mean, I'll go over this with Nick, but it sure looks like, that language said all approvals. And, that to me says we have to put everything has to be approved, including final CO.
Yep.
We might need to talk to Amy about that, but that looks pretty clear to me.
Yeah, we'll certainly, we'll do a first draft and then float it past Amy to see what she recommends or any additional things that we need to do. But, as mentioned, right now, this doesn't have any direct impact, I think, to the timings, assuming that, town meeting occurs when it does, and we don't have any objection or we can't get this approved. So then we have to figure out what to do.
Madam Chairman, can I just, for the record, I gave an update on the Peloton. The real estate manager I spoke to, his name was John Kennedy, just for the record.
Sure.
Sorry to change subjects on the, I just wanted to get that on the record.
No problem. Okay, so that's Solar Retail Norton. But they are moving forward, so things look good there. In respect to Exit 10 LLC, so you may have heard this from the select board meeting. They are changing their ownership. Right now they have 2 owners. It will remain the same 2 owners. It's Alex DiPietro and his wife. They're going to change the percentage of ownership so that they qualify as a I'm going to get this wrong. A social equity applicant. Somebody please. No, economic empowerment.
Why don't you let her suffer through it? She's got this the only way.
I know it's one or the other. I never I have to go through it. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate you not letting me suffer there. So they're changing their ownership. What we will need to do is the select board will need to amend the HCA. They haven't done that yet. They've approached us about it. And this would allow them to participate in the delivery license as well. So on the delivery license, because we have really a lot to talk about. From a perspective of the bylaw, we don't have significant changes to it to do. Amy did recommend that we put in delivery as part of the marijuana establishment so that it is covered. But she believes right now how it's written, it still does cover that operation, that establishment. And so just let me back up one second. The delivery guidance from the CCC was approved, I believe, on November 30th. And if you guys remember, we finished our bylaw in February of last year, and I think we did a minor tweak in May before the meeting. That was then postponed due to the pandemic. So this took place after we had done all the work. So it wasn't like it was a piece that we missed. It just wasn't in existence then. So this is just going back for a normal update based on regulations that have changed, so that we can consider the delivery operator license. And I'm going back through my notes. Yeah, marijuana delivery operator license as part of the marijuana establishments. So she did recommend that we go back and we make modifications to that. And then the other thing that we'll need to consider as well within that is the hours of operation. She said that's one of the things that we'll want to consider. We may also want to consider a discussion on the fleet. Like, do we want to limit the fleet? Would that be part of the bylaw? Would it be part of the HCA? And then I think that's all I had. Paul, was there anything else that she alluded to in respect to that addition in our bylaw?
No, that's all.
Okay, thank you. I thought there was one more thing, but I didn't see it in my notes either. So those will be changes. So we'll do the same thing, right? We'll go back, make the changes to the bylaw, put it in front of Amy, and then we'll come back as a group with her recommendations and see if there are any issues or any additional areas that we need to address. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Can we go back to exit 10?
Yes.
Has the new owner qualified under CCC for economic empowerment?
They haven't made any changes yet. They just advised us that that's what they're looking into. So we asked council what we would have to do, like, does it nullify the HCA? And she just said we would need to amend it to make sure that we had the majority owner signature.
Okay.
So
I think I would just like to raise for the record one of the questions that I was very careful in asking these particular prospective retailers. And this is in regards to, I'm not going to remember the name of the one who wanted to go on with a hub
Green?
parkour. Yes. The CCC at the time was considering amending their rules that social equity and economic empowerment applicants would not have to hold a 51% ownership. And I was concerned about if that were to go through, then there being a change in ownership and the RFP process that we reviewed would not adequately, and we recommended to the select board on that basis, would not adequately or basically didn't match what we had reviewed. I'm concerned about the potential for us putting forth a recommendation and they're not even being able to get past the first step before coming back. I think we should seriously, not in this particular instance because it is the same person. I'm not exactly sure how she's going to be applying under this program, but if they can't make it to the first step in the process, I feel like they should really go back in line and lose their spot.
Go ahead,
I'm
Denise.
confused because they were recommended before this was even on the table, right? So they recommended without the equity program.
Yes,
This is just an additional icing on the cake.
it is,
So
but
what-
it's a change in
so-
ownership. And in this particular instance, I'm okay with it because the ownership's the same. It's just a change in the percentage. If they were to come in and name some other person as 51% owner, that is not the party that we reviewed. That's not the business plan we reviewed. Those are not the financials we reviewed. That is not what we recommended. So I would like to propose that if we have an instance in the future where they cannot even get an HCA signed, they need to get back in line because we have recommended them under false pretenses.
So
I would agree with Laura on that. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I understand the points, but if there's a major equity change, it's a different applicant. You are 100% right. I mean, it really is a different applicant. It could be, the structure could look the same, but we approve a package on everything that we see. And if it's a major change, I would definitely say we would go with other alternates that we may have had.
So I'm not disagreeing with you, but we put in language in the bylaw to account for specifically for a change in ownership. So once the HCA is signed, any change in ownership follows the bylaw, and it's not something that would come back to the EDC. And the select board has the right to not amend the HCA, and it becomes null and void. Right. So we did account for the change in ownership. And Amy said this is not uncommon for them to do that, especially where there are female parties who are part owners, because of the way, again, right, when they first formed this, the regulations weren't final. And they didn't give what I'll say, specific indication on what that regulation would be, even though it was apparent watching them what was being changed or what was being challenged. But it's something that we have to consider too. I mean, down the road, the CCC is going to continue to change regulations. That doesn't mean that in this case they're looking for, to Denise's point, they're looking for additional business, and that business still has to be approved. Like the delivery operator still has to come through with a separate, or a delivery license still has to come through with a separate HCA. So it's not something that wouldn't be reviewed. And when Paul and I spoke to Paul, was it you and I, or was it Mike and I? I can't remember now. Yeah, no, to Alex about the change.
You and I.
Okay, sorry. So when Mike and I spoke to him, one of our conversations, or one of the discussion was that whatever changes would happen, that we expected still would be presented to the EDC, right? So if they're going to engage in a new HCA, it will follow the same process, and the board would support that. And I think, similar to the alcohol licenses, like what was asked at the select board meeting was that it come back in front of us. And that would hold true for any additional HCAs, whether they were retail related or something else.
Okay. Can I ask that we find out where in the process they are of getting approved as an economic empowerment applicant and approved, and how long they expect that to take? Because we approved them on the basis that they were ready to move forward, and they have not even called for a public hearing.
They can, this change has no, I don't want to say no relevance, right? It has no bearing on their timetable, right? Like they could still move forward with this. They can do a change in ownership at any time.
Then why haven't they?
It doesn't change their retail, what's the word I'm looking for? Agreement right now. So the other part with Exit 10 is, while Jeff came to us, the EDC, and said, hey, we have these properties at Exit 10 that we can have marijuana establishments. And if you guys remember, he had a couple that could have marijuana establishments and a couple that couldn't have marijuana establishments. The letter of intent was signed with Exit 10. And then Jeff came back and said, oh, we have a financer now that wasn't approved was not the right word, but they're not supporting marijuana establishments here. So we, again, same conversation with Mike and I, we kicked it back to him to say, you need to work this out. That's what we signed. But we also had conversation with Amy. And again, it's up to the board. If he comes back and they've been given a backup option, by Condyne for space that's at the end of South Washington Street. It's up to the board to accept or approve that change in the HCA. So, but the first step was we kicked it back because we still think that exit 10, its location exit 10, is one of the prime locations for sustainability for a marijuana establishment.
I understand that. I am concerned that they are not progressing.
Well, that's why they're not progressing. So they have 2 years, right? We put the sunset clause in there for 2 years.
Well, if we go to their, what was their ETA for commence operations?
I don't remember.
Hang on. I can't find it.
Not sure. I can tell you the other option that they have to develop space in the existing industrial park is actually a shorter timeline than what they would see at Blue Star. But again,
Their letter of interest
August.
expires November 29th.
what was that, Michael?
Yeah, their plan was originally August. And I know that because I didn't think the buildings were done until October, but they originally told us August, and all documents showed us August was what their plan was. Their letter, their understanding is like I said, in November. But it doesn't even really matter. I don't think the way our bylaws are written, they could tell us that this is when it's going to happen. They still have 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, the way that I understood the bylaw to be.
They do. We specifically put it in there to see forward progress in 2 years. It's been like a month. And it's up to them to determine, are they going to have space at Blue Star? Are they going to come back and present to the board and say, this is, we have the opportunity to move it. This is the timeline. And if that happens, it'll come through the EDC first. But there's nothing at that point we can recommend based on their proposal, but the decision lies with the select board to amend the HCA.
I did find it. They were estimating, I think they revised their timeline and now it's February 1st, 2022. I'm just concerned, they were approved, didn't call for a hearing and have gone back to the drawing board.
Well, they can't call for a hearing. I mean, the hearing is based on the location, right? So if they're informed by Condyne that they potentially aren't going to have that location, so they're trying to work it out with the people that Condyne are working with to have further discussion.
Okay.
That's the first.
All right.
So that's step one. And then as soon as we find something else, then, we'll be informed. But like I said, when Mike and I talked to him, we said, if it's going to be the backup plan, you're going to go somewhere else, consider showing, from beginning to end what that's going to look like. And then also too, if they're going to pursue another HCA, to be prepared to present that at the same time. So the owner, the accountability right now is on them.
Okay.
But trust me, I wasn't, and Mike can attest for this. I was not a happy camper on that call at all.
No,
So.
I would not have been.
And I have to tell you though, like I was upset with them at first. And then after the call, I'm like, why am I upset with them? I'm upset with Jeff. Like Jeff came to us and said, hey, I have these spaces. Can you help us with it? And we went out to people and said, hey, exit 10's available, So, I mean, and I remember the conversation with him with us, and we were very specific about which buildings could we have marijuana establishments in and which couldn't we? And
But
go ahead, Michael.
you can't really be critical of that, Renee. COVID redefined everything, including financing, including, right? I mean, they need plans change, right? I mean, it's yeah, I understand your frustration, but I think we live in quite different worlds than when we started, when we was looking at that space for the first time.
Oh, no, I understand. And like, honestly, I think if it wasn't for the pandemic, he wouldn't have come to us at all, right? Because initially people reached out and it was no. And he came to us. So, I'm just saying, like, my frustration was directed in one way when I first heard the news, and then it was directed the other way after I thought about it. So it's just, it's par for the course. And well, from my perspective, right, they had a good business plan. We all supported it. I mean, that was the one that it was 5 or however many we voted. I know it was 5-0 for the select board, but I think it was unanimous for us too, right? So now it's like part of our job is to support the business and to get the business in. So let's see what they can come back with, and if they have a solid plan, how we can support that.
So I have another question. So the buildings, the first, I think there were 3 retail spots. Blue Star is saying their financing no longer allows for marijuana establishments there, correct?
From my understanding, it's not that they don't allow, it's that they don't necessarily approve. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it was tied to being like federally backed.
Right. It was just that the wherever he was getting the financing from, that said they don't want to finance a building that's going to have marijuana sales in it.
What happens if all of their financing turns out that way?
Well, the other location that they were talking about as a possible location, they would be responsible for building their own building. Condyne would have no involvement. They'd be buying the land and building the building on their own.
In that same industrial park or somewhere else in that section of town?
It's at it's in the Norton Industrial Park. So at the end of South Washington, like by Taunton, by Bay Road and BJ's.
Right.
So it's exit 9, I think, right?
Where Michelle was looking.
Yes, but right on South Washington. And I don't know if it's South Washington down there, but that's the
that is South Washington, but right at Commerce.
So literally, like, you cross town line and it would be right there. The town, I don't know if you're familiar, there's a town line sign there for Taunton and Norton.
Yeah. But it's actually pretty good access right to 495 from there too. Not as direct, not quite as direct as this one, but not even 5 minutes away from the interchange.
Mm-hmm. And the one benefit to this too is that they would have access from 495. So like they would be visible from 495, whereas they're kind of, you can't see them from 495 on exit 10. So it's not awful, right? Like it was one of the locations we looked at. It really fits into easy access on off from 495. But again, I still think exit 10, it's new, it's prime, and we'll see what happens. I haven't, he texted me today. I haven't had time to get in touch with him, so I'm going to connect with him tomorrow, see if he has any updates. He said he had an idea that he wanted to put in front. I'm kind of scared because, Mike, I think that's how he came to us the last time. I have an idea. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, but we'll, I'll keep it on the agenda, and certainly if it's something of significance, I'll talk about the select board meeting too. Let's see. Okay, so the delivery licenses, I mentioned the changes within the bylaw. As I said, Amy said that they weren't, it wasn't critical, but we would want to address those other couple items like the hours of operations and then anything with the fleet. So I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to look at what I sent, if you have any initial questions, or if you want to just wait until we hear from Lucky Green Ladies and then we can have more discussion there. I'm certainly fine with that.
I think we wait to hear from Lucky Green Ladies, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. So we'll jump that next item. Let me just make sure I didn't have any other updates. that was it for those. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the 2021 objectives and the economic development priorities. We started to talk about this with Paul, about how we want to better partner this year and what are some of the things that we want to prioritize. So I'm going to open it up. Paul, I know you had some ideas on this. I don't know if you want to go ahead and kind of talk about some of those.
Well, one of the things I've applied for a grant with the state with their downtown, the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative, and applied for a grant called the Rapid Recovery Grant. And this grant, it's essentially what they call a planning grant, and we would be applying for. We wouldn't actually receive the money, but the state would be directly hiring a consultant to work with us. And the application I applied for was along West Main Street from the Village Center out roughly to where Home Plate is. And what this plan would do, these consultants would do, is come up with a pretty quick turnaround and working with us and with the businesses in that district to come up with some strategies to help improve their overall performance, including how could we better market that area, how can we better communicate, and then also look at improvements that we can make to the outdoor experience. Like you see a lot of places that have outdoor seating, maybe not on a night like tonight, but we really need the help of a consultant to look at this area and figure out what do we need to do to make this area really better than what it is. I hope to hear soon about that grant. I've heard that there's a good likelihood that everyone who applies for it will get the services. I do know that they've been a little delayed, like everybody, particularly on hiring consultants. But I think this would be a great opportunity for us to really work closely with those businesses there to see how we can make that area get their improvements. So that's certainly one avenue to help out with. And hopefully, if it's true that, and we do end up with the grant, one of the things I had written in was that we would form an implementation team for that area that would involve, could involve us, it could involve the businesses and other stakeholders to make sure that once that plan is adopted, that we actually keep going forward to make those improvements happen. I think another thing, Renee, and you and I talked about, in fact, Mike, you and I talked about, was also working to bringing, industry to meet with the commission, such as as focus groups. Like, for example, get various restaurant owners to come and meet and talk about the needs that they have and what the town could do to potentially help them. Or, some of the larger employers to just get them on this call to talk with you and see what their needs are and what we can do to collaborate and partner better with them. If you all think that that's an opportunity as well. There is also now a third one that just came about.
Paul,
and
I think Michael had something to say.
Sorry.
He was talking to himself on
I
mute.
want to hear from anyone other than me. So
Something Renee wishes she had that ability in real life to just hit the mute button with me. Just kind of.
I do.
No, I think that's, for me, that's one of the goals that I would love to see us really kind of dig in and really identify in 2021. Almost, when I look at this in my own business on the sales and marketing side, is kind of classify our customers as, large businesses, medium-sized businesses, or types of businesses, as Paul was saying, like restaurants and so forth. I think that would really, really help us. I'm not sure, and this morally is a question for the town manager, if there is a CRM or a database directory where we can really start putting these people in, putting their websites on there in a town directory and names. So one of the things that we see, and not that you're leaving us anytime soon, Paul, but as the economic development people change or in town change, that wealth of information goes out the door with them. And we have to, we have to figure out a way to stop that. And I think a CRM system might be a way that, I know for me as a select person,
or you could pay us better, Mike.
You know, that was my uncomfortable laugh, Paul. Sorry. But I think that's something that we should really look at as a real business directory or CRM, customer management tool, so we don't lose that continuity.
Well, fortunately, we've been, in the last couple, well, certainly more than the last couple of years, but our technology has been, our capacity has really been boosted. Now we have online permitting. We use file sharing. We use Dropbox. So those are great tools that will help, it helps retain the information, and it's public too. So, I mean, I love the idea. We were talking earlier today about, I'm not familiar with that type of software, but I get the premises of it. And yeah, anything that helps keep institutional knowledge is vital. We want to leave a digital trace, Yeah.
Mike, is there anything in Mike Units? Is there anything in the CARES Act or anything? If there's, I know during COVID, I mean, is there any way we could back into that as a need for COVID to track businesses and to try a better way to track businesses that we might be able to make an investment into a CRM system with any of that money? Not care money left, but
I don't know if that would meet the guidelines. We'll look at, they have categories. I'll look at it and see.
Okay. All right. So, Renee, do you see what I'm speaking of, right? I mean,
I do.
And personally, I think the town should have one even for its residents. We hear of residents and that have concerns within the town, and it would be great to be able to track those things in a tool within the town as well. But,
I mean, I wonder too, and this might be getting a little off track, but I wonder if, like the assessor's office, or, I mean, there's pieces of data already that we have. Like, are there opportunities where we can leverage existing systems and just, add specific information to it? And I don't know, maybe Paul, that's something that you can follow up on with your peers.
Renee, I think the data. I think yeah. Sorry, Paul.
No, that's fine. I'm going to write that down.
I think we have all the data. I think if you go through a collection between licensing, building permits, the clerk, and taxes, I think we have an incredible amount of data. I don't think we have one place. Everyone is working in their own kind of system per se. And I'm not sure if there's, I mean, we're not going to access the tax system. We're not going to be doing that. But if there's an external system that everyone can use that we might be able to backfeed those systems into to pull that data, I think that's because we just don't have, we know that if I need to get a listing for businesses, I go to the clerk's office, but the licensing, I just speak to Jen. Treasurer is different, taxes are also different.
Yeah, one of the things, we're still expanding our online permitting. In fact, next week we're working with Permitize. They're going to walk us through business certificates. So we want to get those online. So when they file, rather than just doing a paper application now, we want them to, any new businesses to file and go through online. And so that way, it's I mean, the town clerk will have to weigh in on how public all the records are. But again, for us, that would be good. Like in my case, when a business certificate gets approved online, I can get pinged that we have a new business. That's an opportunity to reach out and say hello to them and start a dialogue with them. And, one of the things that could help us do down the road as that builds up is, you know, one of the great frustrations I had during COVID was we just didn't have an opportunity to reach out to many businesses with all this information flying around about grants, PPP, you know, protecting, you know, your employees in the workplace. There was a lot of information, and we didn't have a direct communication with most of our businesses. I mean, we did a lot with on our website and social media, and I was developing a very small spreadsheet with emails. But if we are able to use this tool as a way of communicating appropriate information to businesses, I think that only helps everybody.
I agree. Hey, Paul, did you say earlier on that grant, and I apologize, I didn't ask this, when you should hear back from them?
I don't know. I've heard there have been delays. It seems like every grant now it's just taking longer for them, but yeah, we applied, must have been in December, so hopefully within a month. And then hopefully we can just hit the ground running if we get it. I think the biggest delay right now is they're still needing to contract with consultants.
Okay.
But I think this would give us a not only for that area, but the lessons we could learn from that, we could apply to other areas of town. You know, how do we market these other areas? I mean, obviously we could expand beyond just West Main Street, you know, but I think there's an opportunity to go beyond that. But right now, many of the state's grants are really, they're quick hitters. It's like you've got to be shovel ready and get it in the ground. And unfortunately, like for one of the grants we applied for, we just weren't ready. You know, and again, I take that's on me, but this is a grant to help us get ready. So when the next time money comes in from MassDOT's Shared Streets grant, now we can say, you know, we've got a plan ready. So when the funding, you know, if the funding's available, you know, when we want to do more outdoor seating, we will have a plan with hopefully agreement by the property owners of the businesses to say, yeah, we're going to put benches and seats and all of that outside, and not have to deal with MassDOT and putting anything on their right of way, which you know, won't be a quick thing to do.
Yeah, and then back to the focus groups, like, how do you think, or what groups do you think we should prioritize? Like, certainly to Michael's point, I think restaurants, I think those definitely that have been impacted by the pandemic are probably in a higher priority group. But how would you see us kind of putting that into action?
Well, I think you would, you know, maybe we could just use the town clerk's business, start with that, and then break them out by sector. And yeah, I think it would be, you know, what Michael was mentioning about the largest employers, or that's also been mirrored by other economic development people that I've talked with around the state, that we really should be, you know, talking to them pretty quickly, you know, early, but also get the smaller businesses as well. So, but we could just break it out by sector, and then, you know, and then just start inviting people, set times, figure out what do we want to get? What does success look like after each of these meetings with the businesses? Because obviously we want to make sure it's impactful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is there somebody that would like to reach out to the town clerk's office and get a listing of that information to take a quick look to see?
I already have it.
Oh, you have it? Excellent.
Yeah. I had to put
I shared the
what's that?
directory list as well. The 2020, January 2020, I sent everyone in the board, and I'll be glad to do it again. But Paul, if you have a more up-to-date one, I'll take that.
She just gave it. I just received it about 2 weeks ago from Lucia. Because I wanted to get ahead on that grant in anticipation that we get it. So I wanted to pull the businesses that she had information on in that corridor. So I have the full list.
Okay, what do you need from us?
Okay, so if we get that grant, I think what I really need is for us to, work on that, work with the consultant on it, and look at this group as a part of the implementation team. But that'll also mean reaching out to the businesses in that, whatever that corridor gets defined as, reaching out to the businesses and other stakeholders and try to bring people together and figure out a way to make quick improvements that, that we can quickly turn around and implement. So, if we get that grant, it might make sense when the consultant team get them on a meeting here.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have, how's that list separated? Like, could we easily filter on locations, like areas or districts, and then also filter on like sectors? Or
Well,
will we have to manipulate it a bit?
I had a PDF of it. And it wasn't by any area. It wasn't by address. It might have been, I don't know how they organize it. I was looking specifically at addresses. And so, but I can take a look at it and also see, see if we can get it in a format other than PDF.
Paul, they can do it in Excel because they've done it for me in Excel.
Okay.
And also this afternoon, I watched Governor Baker's press conference, and there was Secretary Mike Keneally and said that they are deploying small funded business, and this help is important for their strategy. And not only small business employ most of the workforce, they are family owned in generations, and they are fortunate to have a comprehensive network, and how important it is to have all important works of life and protect their own small companies, and provided one-on-one and support in several language transitions. And the growth program administered by Mass Growth is to provide the education and capital for small business. And since 2015, this program has distributed $100,000 in grants, and they benefit 12,500 small businesses, including 27 startups. And yours truly visited a lot of the businesses, especially restaurants. And I support all the local businesses in the town of Norton. And it's time that we start caring about our local businesses in town.
So
Awesome.
What,
Thank you, Peter.
Can I just add to what Peter's saying?
Yeah, sure.
There's another potential project is a buy local. We don't have a buy local initiative in town. And, that's Peter just hit it up right on the head. And, many towns have events. Sharon, you gave me Foxborough's, right, a while back, and I've been in touch with Paige, who's the planning director there, and that may be another thing that we could fairly readily do. And if we do it now, we could certainly be ready for the holiday season. Come, well, I don't know. Christmas seems to start in August now, but if we were to do something like what they're doing in Foxborough, that would be another big win for us.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Paul. I think, if you have an opportunity to dig a little deeper into that list and we can get a game plan together, then I think that makes sense. I mean, I'd like to hear from other folks on what you think of putting together focus groups and getting some information from those. But I agree with you, Paul. Like, I feel like we need to have some sort of preparation so that, we can give them questions that we're interested in and solicit feedback that's going to be helpfor to them and to us.
Yeah, I've had conversations with a number of businesses and asked them about their needs. And, for example, one of the things a few of them have said was it would be nice if the town could host a job board so that if they have, Horizon Beverage made that comment that if they would love to hire local. And maybe we could get a job board and post only Norton businesses. If we're able to do that, I don't know if there's any legal issues with us doing that, but you know, but anyway, that's just the point. If we just, if it focuses on what their needs are and what, you know, what their experiences are and what we can do to try to help them, that's, you know. And the other good thing is everyone I've talked with have all said, we really want to help, you know, with, you know, donations and charitable work too. So, you know, it's great. They give, and that's a wonderful thing. They give to our community. So
That would be something nice for us to coordinate too.
Love the idea.
well, Sharon is the master at that.
Yeah, there's not a donation I'll turn down, so that's a good thing.
Well, you do a great job of getting it though.
So Mike, is that something, can you ask Lauren or somebody if a job board if we'd have any sort of conflict with that? And then maybe we can ask around and see if any other areas are doing it and how we might be able to do it. You're muted, Mike.
Yeah, I'll talk to Lauren and ask her that.
Have you heard of that happening in any other towns?
I have not. But I don't see why it would be an issue, but I'll talk to her.
Okay. And if
Some towns have done it through their local, Norton Neighbors can create a tab along there in their page that is jobs, right? And then you just submit the job in there, and then they post that. But I've seen it through on social media, but it'd be interesting to see if it's on a web page.
yeah, I mean, I know we post our own, and I have to just openly admit this because I think everybody else has seen your cat make a presence, Michael.
Listen, she did a very good. She did a very good job. You see that? She's going to go behind the curtain now. All right.
I saw her behind you. I'm like, she's going to start whacking you.
And she doesn't hide to do that. So, I forgot what I was going to say, but all right. On that note.
Sorry, my phone cut out for a second there. And for some reason, my video keeps stopping. Okay, so Paul, you gave us 2 good ideas. Anything else that you had in your bag of tricks?
Well, I don't, this is one though that we just received an email from the state on, there's grant money to do a regional economic initiative. I hadn't really thought about anything in a regional perspective, but I've reached out to, the planner in Foxborough to see if there's a way of combining efforts and maybe with some other municipalities. It has to be more than Norton. It has to be at least 2 municipalities, but again, they're looking at different ways in which to boost business in an area. I can send that to you as well.
Are there criteria involved in that? I see Mansfield as having a pretty solid commercial base, right? Taunton too. Are there any requirements?
There are specific or generally different buckets of projects that they're looking at. Well,
Okay.
I'll send that to you tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, and I'll get it out to everyone. We can take a look. That would be interesting to see, if we had limitations in partnering with different municipalities.
It seems pretty open-ended, but until you try to apply it, we won't know what the obstacles will be. But it'd have to be something that crosses right into Mansfield, maybe Foxborough or Attleboro. We could certainly reach out to those cities as well if we think we have an idea.
An interesting concept. I don't know, in my mind, I can't fit together the pieces of what that would look like.
Regionalism's a bit of a tougher animal. But, it could be where sometimes with regional economic development, you might say that, let's say you're along the coast and you want to, really build out your fishing industry, or it might even be your, something related to biology or some industry that's water related. Municipalities or region can come together and say, we want to really grow this type of economy. You know what, Renee, I'm going to send this to you right now. And, so that way I don't forget. So anyway.
Okay.
I want to really stay more, I would say I'm optimistic about getting that grant for West Main Street. And I just hope we do get it, and then we're just ready to hit the ground on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, Paul. And certainly if you find out, what that timeline might be,
right,
and you can share that, that'd be awesome as well.
Yeah.
Any other things that we want to prioritize or consider for this year? Nothing?
I assume you mean for the whole commission, right?
Yes. Yeah,
I think
I
they've
mean,
heard enough from me.
if you have anything, please feel free. But yeah.
No, I've said too much.
So Renee, one of the things that I'm going to actually, and I'm going to ruin the surprise here, but I spoke with Mike about it today, is I want to call for the select board a planning meeting, but one of the major components of that planning meeting is to work with the EDC and the planning board to really roll out the master plan that we should be getting come June. And I think it's an important component to kind of start doing a little bit of legwork on how that will happen, and working with Paul to kind of make that happen. They're going to give us a direction. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Paul, but that will give us a little bit of a direction on, what we should be focusing on the town, on the business components, the residential components, and so forth.
Yeah, there'll be a number of
I know you want to slap me
initiatives.
around. Please slap me around, Paul.
No, I no, when you mentioned it, I'm glad you are, because, a plan only works when people make it work. And when you get an implementation team to take on different tasks, because the plan will have a number of initiatives, and, it's not, I'm not going to be able to do all of them. And that's what can give these master plans can give a community a sense of direction in all of the different areas that a town operates. So, and I think I want to see more. I want to see the boards be more proactive with the master plan.
And I think that my guess is, and I don't know this for a fact, I've got a funny feeling it's why we went so long without a master plan. The last master plan we did was in the 80s. And I think what happened was they touched on it, and they just expected either the planning director to implement it, or the select board to implement it. I think it really has to be the EDC, the planning board, the select board, all kind of taking that plan and saying, we're going to implement this and keep it going. As soon as it's done, we should say, okay, we know what the life of that plan, that master plan is going to be. We should already say, okay, on this date, 10, 15 years from now, whatever the date is, 10 years from now, we're going to have to do another master plan, right? But between there, these are the goals that we need to do and to kind of implement some of the focus of that master plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And this plan, I think one of the things that why that the last plan, when it was adopted, it was a policy plan. It had good policies in it, but there weren't specific actions in it. So one of the things we will work on with this is identify those actions. And I keep asking Serpid to just say, look, let's put a work plan together. The document should end at the end of the day, be able to say, if we're going to focus on, say, transportation, here are the groups that should be involved from the town, from the private sector, from, other agencies. And these are the steps, these are the actions they're going to focus on, and do that for housing, do it for conservation, and certainly economic development.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, And that's why, we've had, like Sharon has been involved with it because it needs to work for Parks and Rec. So she needs to have while the public's informing it, we need to make sure that we can implement what the public's asking for. And, whether it's Sharon for Parks and Rec or Jen Carlino for conservation, they need to be, getting involved with it and hopefully getting their boards involved with it too.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
No, you go, Renee.
I was just going to ask, was there anything else that came out of the master planning sessions that would be helpful for us to know?
Well, we still have a couple more sessions to go, but yeah, I mean, it's important that people were saying when they look at the areas especially along 123 and 140, that there are services they still want to see there. They also, when we were talking about housing, people recognized that we need more housing diversity. And of course, housing has an important impact on economic development. So, I can send you the link to the work, to the master plan page too, so you can see the inputs. They've done a great job. They have some interactive maps. I know some of you came out to the work sessions. Well, they've put all of those on maps. And so you can click on it and see the comments that people are identifying, which again, certainly, there's some parcels people identified that could be developed. I'll send the master plan
It'd
link.
be great if we could get that link, because I didn't participate in as many as I wanted to, but the couple that I did was really was pretty fulfilling.
Serpent did a great job. They made it very interactive, and people were, when you see hundreds and hundreds of notes posted, that means people were really into it and gave a lot of great ideas. So, and then they pretty quickly turned it around and put the information out. But I'll get that to you.
Two of the things that stood out to me were how many people said that they wanted more entertainment in town, whether it's restaurants with entertainment and more outside seating. And then the other one that came up was, there's people that are living in houses that they'd love to they want to stay in town.
Yeah.
But their families have grown and left, and they have a big house. And if there was more housing, smaller downsized housing on small lots that they don't have to take care of a lot of land, that they could sell their houses, put some money in their pocket and buy a smaller house. That came up quite a bit too.
A lot. I remember too, Mike, from that conversation, we had a lot of people older than me there, but they were recognizing exactly that point, that they want to stay in Norton. And some of them, and in addition to what Mike was saying, some of them said, well, I'd like to build, a mother-in-law flat in the backyard, but our bylaw doesn't allow that. So there will need
Also people older than you that wanted the entertainment too. It wasn't like you think that it was younger people. It was.
Did you just call Paul old?
He did. But that's okay. I like entertainment too. But yeah, and we need to keep Peter busy. But yeah, there were a whole host of things, but a lot of them have tie-ins to economic development that might not directly be called economic development, but housing's a big part of it. But quality of life. I mean, if you have a place that's, has all these different amenities, businesses themselves will want to come here, because they'll want to be near where they just enjoy being. So I'll get that to you. There's a lot of good information there.
Oh,
Can I, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
I
Laura.
was just going to ask, with regards to the downsizing, the town seems to have a fairly large proportion of condo complexes and condominium housing. Are they looking for standalone, still having a yard? I'm trying to understand why a condo is not more appealing.
Laura, do you mean in terms of what people were saying
For
at the?
downsizing.
Yeah, I think they were saying that they would like condos, or, I think what we heard though, there was a spectrum of types of uses, like some people still might want a yard, but they might want a smaller, but some people did talk about apartment living and in condos as well. But our bylaw makes those very difficult to do. And so, we will have to, when one of the actions we will need to take after the plan is adopted is start looking at rewriting the bylaw, the zoning bylaw. But it has to reflect what people told us. So the bylaw would need to say, because if people are saying we want more housing choice, then we need to really, look at the uses and look at our zoning, and make it simpler for people if there is a market for more condos, to make it easier. But we only allow them in a couple zoning districts, and you got to get a special permit for it, and that's not incentivizing it. That's making more hurdles for it.
Right, that's right. And there are attempts by the town that were, in the past, there was 1975, 1987, 1997, that the town attempted a master plan.
One of the things that I brought up at the master plan meeting was, I think we should look at doing a full zoning review of the town. And I'd be happy to help with that project.
You're hired.
Sign her up.
We definitely have to look at that. We've been fortunate since like 2015 that our new growth has been going up, but a lot of that's due to Condyne and the development they've been doing. And so, once they're built out there, we have to look at, the zoning and see what we can do to make sure we have land available for development, commercial development.
Yeah. And we may have an opportunity coming up soon that you may be hearing about in a couple of weeks.
We will be hearing about it in a couple of weeks. It's on our next meeting agenda.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
is that the, all right. Okay. I'll wait. It's 8:30, by the way.
It is. That's. Are there any other questions on this topic? Okay, certainly if you guys have any ideas after the meeting, feel free to send them to me and I'll put them on the agenda and share with Paul. But I think just even, not knowing the timing for the Rapid Recovery Grant, I think any work that we can do on focus groups and, I guess that's one of the things, like if we can build and maintain these relationships with the businesses in town, right? Word of mouth means everything. So if we're supportive, that can help us build some future growth too. So thank you, Paul, for all your ideas. I appreciate it. And, I think that, I think we have some good things coming for us. Okay, so with that, Lucky Green Ladies had emailed us, and if anybody doesn't have that email, let me know. Alyssa, I think that you did send it to everybody. So Alyssa Nowak is on the line, and I saw Nick Obolinski join too. They had sent us an email interested in negotiating or entering an HCA with the town of Norton on delivery licenses. So I will turn it over. I don't know, Nick, if you or Alyssa are going to speak, but you have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight and being so flexible with the schedule. But you
yes, I certainly appreciate that.
No worries. We know how difficult things can be, so we appreciate you guys. I know we moved our meeting a couple times, so appreciate the flexibility too.
For sure. So you did a great introduction, but again, my name is Alyssa Nowak and I am the CEO of Lucky Green Ladies. I didn't make a PowerPoint for tonight. I figured I'd just give the board a quick overview and then open the floor up for questions if that's okay with you, Renee. So I was disappointed from the results for the retail selection process for the new members. I was the runner-up in that process, so I did apply for it. And through that, I really grew fond of the town and I enjoyed listening in on the meetings. And after the process was over, I just missed being so involved. So I felt that pursuing a delivery operator license was a good opportunity for me to stay involved. So that's why I'm here, and starting the overview. I think some highlights of that proposal were the revenue that this type of license would bring to the town. So we are projecting anywhere from 500,000 to $1 million annually to the town. And we're projecting higher revenues for the delivery as to a retail store because there'll be a limited amount of delivery operators due to that social equity and economic empowerment exclusivity period. So for example, we projected that there'd be about 35 delivery operators, and then that's compared to 350 or 400 retail stores. That's what we have projected for when the retail market matures. So it's definitely a big difference there. And that's why we thought that the delivery would get higher revenues. But since my headquarters would be located in Norton, Norton will receive the community impact fee as well as the 3% local excise tax. And that's on all sales and regardless of the consumer's residential location. So let's say we're delivering in Springfield, Boston, it doesn't matter, that all those sales go to Norton, which I think is great. So this license is fairly similar to the retail license. Many of the procedures like the storage and the transportation of marijuana from the suppliers to our facility are the same. The security procedures are the same. But the main differences, well, one being the obvious, that all products would be delivered directly to the customers, and then no customers would be allowed in the store, as well as we won't be packaging any marijuana there. So everything will come to us pre-packaged, and then we are allowed to white label them. So put our sticker on the jar, which we plan to do. And then how this would all pretty much work is that consumers will place their order online the day before. They'll pay for their order at that time and also go through their first ID check. Orders will then be prepared, and then the next day they'll be loaded and locked onto the delivery vehicle. 2 delivery agents will always be present in the vehicle, or always be present. Well, one will stay in the vehicle as the other one is doing the delivery. And then they will check in with dispatch every 30 minutes, and then also on the arrival and departure from the delivery location, like each customer's delivery location. So they're constantly checking in. And then some operating procedures that I think were important to mention was that IDs are checked online, but then also they go through a second check when the delivery agent is delivering to the customer. They'll have a portable ID scanner. Well, they'll check the ID again and make sure that the names match up, the residences, not a school zone or, federal property. So that they'll check again, and then they'll wear body cameras, and then there'll also be cameras inside the vehicle, and the vehicle will be equipped with an exterior alarm, and as well as a GPS tracking system so that the dispatch knows where they are at every second. So then our plan with this pretty much is that we're planning to employ 21 to 30 full-time agents with the goal of hiring 50% of those of Norton residents. And then similar to our retail business, we're still planning on providing full benefits. We're planning on having 8 to 10 delivery vehicles to start. And then 2 of those vehicles will always be designated as backup vehicles in case a delivery vehicle breaks down. So there'll be no stop in our service. We do plan on using a third-party technology platform that is convenient for customers to order. Customers will also be able to order on our website, and then eventually we plan on creating our app. So they'll be able to order there too. And then to start, our plan is to offer next day delivery. Customers will need to place their order by 8 p.m. to receive a next day delivery, but in time we may offer same day deliveries if the customer, let's say, orders before noon. So we're gonna have 2 delivery shifts. One is from 9 to 3, and then the other is from 3 to 9. And then by having 2 delivery shifts, if it's possible, I know the demand may be high at first, we'd be able to accommodate same day deliveries. And then our delivery fees will be based on the consumer's residential location. And then deliveries will be free to consumers who spend a certain amount of money. We're not really sure what that amount is yet, but that's definitely the plan. Then pretty much our next steps is that we're asking the EDC to recommend Lucky Green Ladies to the select board to enter negotiations for an HCA. A signed HCA from the town will allow us to submit the application to the CCC as soon as it's released. They're planning on that being in the next 4 to 5 weeks. And we believe if all goes as planned that we can be operational 9 months from today, which I think that puts us at December 2021. So that's actually the same timeline that we had projected for our retail location. And we're really excited to get the ball rolling on this because we have the opportunity to be one of the first delivery operators in the Commonwealth. And we believe that that will position us and establish us and help us build long-term relationships with our customers. And then also we'll gain significant media coverage. You know, when you're the first of anything, it's definitely covered on the news. And we look at that as free marketing, but that's also great for the town because, you know, people will say, oh, you know, Norton is marijuana business friendly. Let me locate my business there. It's kind of similar to what's happened in Northampton and Uxbridge. They have some, I think Uxbridge, for example, has 19 other marijuana businesses. And yeah, that's about it. Does the board have any questions?
Madam Chair.
Michael, just one comment. I'm sure like others that we're happy that this is being recorded because Alyssa, you went through that in record speed. It was very informative. I just, my hand's not as fast to take notes, but I'll have follow-up questions. Go ahead, Michael.
Just wanted to say thank you for sticking with the town of Norton. I think this is, if it meets our bylaws, and I just said I would ask the question. I know Renee and Laura know the bylaws, and Sandy, and better than myself. I think this is a great opportunity for us to bring something and make a recommendation to Norton that's going to be here. There are going to be people that deliver in Norton. I would rather get the tax dollars from that and support a business on someone who's. We saw your model before. I thought it was an excellent model. And I think it's a good idea. Do you think? What kind of head start do you think is going to be in the industry? I know that there's only a certain group that can deliver right now in the early parts. How big of a head start do you think that's going to give you?
So it's kind of different when you start thinking about the couriers too, because they definitely have a lot more of a head start than the operators do because they're able to, I think one right now even has their final license. They're able to get through the process a lot quicker, but as for the operator license, they haven't released that application yet. But I do know of other social equity applicants that have received HCAs from towns. So I definitely maybe won't be the first one, but definitely in the top tier if we could, get the HCA and be able to submit on time.
And
if I can jump in, I apologize, but Alyssa, I don't know is this committee, are you aware of the difference between the two different delivery models? There are two different delivery license categories that are available, and I don't know if this committee is aware of them, but
I think I might be the only one because we had this discussion with town council. So Nick, if you want to inform us, that'd be great.
I'll try and be as simple as possible. I mean, one is basically I have a courier license. I'm allowed to if I have a retail store, well, I can courier marijuana from my store to the customer. If I have an operator license, it's sort of like being the Amazon. You can warehouse the product and then deliver it directly from your warehouse, so to speak, to the customer. So it doesn't have to go first to a retail store and then to the customer. And so the courier model, what I've seen thus far is mainly those retail store operators that also can take advantage of being social equity or economic empowerment applicants or participants. And those are getting a courier license as well so that they're able to both sell at their retail location and deliver to those people who don't want to come to their retail location, but primarily delivering their own products. Whereas the operator model is buying wholesale from various cultivators and product manufacturers, warehousing, and then selling essentially retail at somebody's doorstep. But those are the two different types of models, and they're only available to social equity program participants and economic empowerment program participants for the next 3 years. And that 3-year clock starts when the first one gets their license and is operational.
So, and if I can add to that too, because Alyssa, you made a comment early on about how it's similar to retail, but I just want for the commission to know that while it is a similar model to retail, it does not follow like the same licensing, right? So it's not an area where we would regulate them, like as Amy had mentioned to Paul and I in discussion, and Mike. It's more aligned to like a cultivator or a manufacturer, right? So it's not like we would look at it like retail to say, well, how many licenses can we have, and then have a rigorous process. So I just want to put that out there for awareness. And then also too, because we have a bit of a difference with Wheaton College. I believe within the regulations, it specifies that you can't deliver to colleges. So Wheaton would not be, to Alyssa's point, and making sure that they're not going to a school or federal property, that would include anything for Wheaton as well.
So just for my clarification, the model that Alyssa, you're applying for is more the Amazon model where you're.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I may have missed it. Do we know when the state is expected to ratify those regulations?
They're already. Go, Nick.
No. So I mean, the regulations have been published. They're final. It's the question is when the application is going to be available.
And that was what, November 30th that they finalized, right?
Yes.
I don't know. Do you guys have any indication of when they think that application will be available?
I heard that it's at the top of their priority list, so that it maybe take them. Last week I heard 5 to 6 weeks, so that's, I was saying 4 to 5 now. But no one
It's hard
really.
to know. 4 to 6.
Right.
Sometime soon.
But we want to be ready, when the application comes out, we want to submit right away.
Sure. And one of the things that we talked about too, and Alyssa, I know you heard this earlier about, our changes within the bylaw and accounting for the hours. Just so the commission's aware, town council did advise that we could put those prior to a bylaw change. We can put those within the HCA. So there's nothing for us to proceed with this type of an establishment. There's nothing that would hold us back from going through the HCA process. We would leverage the existing one, but we would make some modifications to it.
Great.
Any questions from the group? Comments?
Let's a quick question. Do you have a retail location in mind? Would it be the same location that you were considering?
Yeah, I am considering the same location, but I'm also open to others if, that opportunity presents itself. I definitely am in talk with Gator right now. I think I'm going to move from the unit that I was at, which was the former frozen berry yogurt store, to a smaller unit, and one that isn't, the other one had a lot of foot traffic. It was right by the Anchor store. I mean, I know it's closed now, but that store has the opportunity to have like a grocery store, a big store in there. So we were looking at one that's on closest to Dunkin' Donuts, but next to the Dollar Tree. So kind of on the end there. And I think that space was a 1,300 square foot space. So we obviously don't need a sales floor. So everything would just be a packing area and then storage. So we don't really need as much space for the retail store.
That's a tough spot. That'd be a perfect spot for you where you're not looking for traffic because there's no parking at that end. Donuts takes it to the parking in that plaza, but it's a great space. It's just if you were running a retail business out of there, it's just not enough parking at the end there.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need parking for this, right?
Right. That's why I'm saying it's such a great space for this concept, Denise.
Well, other than the fleet.
Right.
But even then, it's not that many cars.
Well, there's a lot of room behind, you may or may not be aware of it, but there's a lot of room behind that plaza where the fleet can be. And Gator's actually been great. There's quite a bit of flexibility working with them. And I think we're just working on what's the most ideal unit for the purpose that we're doing in that plaza, knowing that we already have the relationship with Gator and have locked in a spot with them, and basically what's going to work best for the town, for Gator, and for us to have the most efficient and convenient space.
So I am surprised by looking at that space in the list. I know you said that you're open to other opportunities, because in the information that you sent, I actually kept referring to a warehouse, right? So it is, and I think, I'm not absolutely sure, so you can correct me, but is a warehouse referenced more in the guidelines because it is more aligned to a cultivation or manufacturing facility?
Yes, that's just what, they use in the CCC regulations. So that language carried over to the proposal. But yeah, I know it doesn't look like a warehouse, but it would be our little warehouse. Yes.
Okay.
Are you considering, well, now that you're considering a smaller space, I was wondering if, knowing you weren't going to need the space for the retail, but if there were an opportunity where a retail license were to become available, and you had applied for it, would you retrofit the existing space? Would you open a retail space in a different location, or maybe a different spot within the plaza?
I guess I would really be open to anything, wherever that, I would be grateful for a retail license, and, wherever that opportunity would be, if we don't want it on 140 because Solar Retail Norton is down the street, I totally understand that. So I would be open to moving. But if that is still a possibility to have it in the Great Woods, then maybe I'd move back to the frozen berry unit. But also with that, you're allowed 2 delivery licenses. So if I am to get a retail store, I'd be interested in also still doing the courier model. I did propose that in the retail process, and that would be, so I would deliver for my store as well, but I would also keep the operator. So maybe I'd have the operator license in a different store, or, just keep that there, and then do the retail with the courier license.
Yeah. Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Michael.
If there isn't any other questions or discussions, I'd like to make a motion.
Michael, I do have some other questions.
Okay.
You can certainly motion, and we can open up for discussion, but.
No, it's all right. I'll withdraw.
So a couple things on the information that you had sent, just for clarification. I know you mentioned delivery charge based more on distance. How do you anticipate, like, as the market becomes more saturated, that delivery charge would change?
Then I think it would change based on convenience. So if we're able to offer same day delivery, well, okay, so it'll be $20 if you order the night before, but if you want it the same day, then, we'll do 40. Those are just rough numbers, but something like that. I think that that would come down to.
Yeah, and how does the delivery charge work? So I know from an excise tax perspective, right? There's 3% on the sale of the marijuana. Does the town see anything from that delivery charge fee?
They could. That would be more for the negotiation process, but if that's included in the HCA, then yes, that's possible.
Okay, and then on the information that you submitted to us, and it's, I think, somewhere around like page 17 or 20, depending upon if you have it written or I'm just looking at my notes, so I'm not sure which is which, written or hard copy. You have a reference there to 16.9% for the market. Like, how did you come up with that figure without this type of an establishment? Are you pulling numbers from another state, or is there something comparable that you guys were using in your comparisons?
David, if you want to jump in on that one, he actually helped me out with the financial side.
So Renee, the U.S. Census.
I'm sorry, David, can I just ask you to introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. My name's David Rabinovitz, and I've been assisting Alyssa through the process. I'm also one of the trainers for the social equity program. That's how I met Alyssa. She was in the first cohort, probably one of the, I don't want to say the best, because then I'd have to look at everybody in that cohort, but Alyssa was far and head and shoulders above most of the people in that program. back in August, I think it was the US Census Bureau published a report that in Q2 of 2020, e-commerce sales accounted for 16.1% of all retail. Right now, and I think we put this in the book that we sent in, home delivery is how most marijuana is delivered today on the unregulated market. So my belief is that if e-commerce sales are accounting for 16.1%, I think that it's going to be a floor of 30% of marijuana retail is going to go for home delivery, especially if we start to bring people in who are in the unregulated market now. They're used to getting home delivery, so that's what they're going to want. But the 16.1% came from either US Census or the Commerce Department. I forget what it is, but there may have been an automatic link in that book that would bring you to the press release.
Okay, thank you, David.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'll go back and mute.
So, David, I'm not going to disagree with your analysis because it sounds like it's well-founded, but there's no other option today on the illegal market other than home delivery.
No, you can get plenty of options, but the way most of it works now, I mean, the people who I'm dealing with or assisting who are currently in the social equity training program, there's a whole bunch of them that are running home delivery operations who want to go legal. And that's how I've gotten a lot of the information. You don't go to your local pizza shop anymore or meet somebody on a street corner if you want to buy weed. It is you pick up the phone, you go to their website, you get on Instagram. It's all electronic communication. Most of the payments are electronic. I mean, it is a very sophisticated business right now. And the people I've talked to all seem to have the same bias that the customers that are getting home delivery now, if they go to the legal operators, they're going to want home delivery.
And I can, as another component of my legal practice, I'm a defense attorney, and I can echo David's sentiment in saying that is really how things go right now. The model has changed in the last 20 years or so, especially with so many states having it legal or medical. People are accustomed to having it conveniently placed in their hands.
Thank you. That's helpful. Appreciate that.
Oh, I have a question because David, you mentioned about the electronic transactions. I thought that this had to be a cash business.
No, not at all. The reason it's a cash business has to do with we're coming up on it. Yeah, actually, February 14th, 2014, FinCEN and the Justice Department issued companion memos that had to do. The FinCEN memo said to banks, if you want to bank a marijuana business, this is basically the way to do it. And all the banks have run from it. So that's why you only see a few credit unions. There are probably a half a dozen, and that's just a guess, but may even be a low guess, firms out there that are offering different payment platforms. The problem is a lot of them are really gouging, and they're taking out, if any of you are in the retail business and you take credit cards, if you think merchant fees are bad, what they do to the cannabis operators is unconscionable. There are a couple of companies that are actually designing payment systems that merge right into with the banks that are online with a typical merchant account, a couple of points, that sort of thing. But most of the business, I think very little is going to be cash, because I don't think many of the operators want their people handling cash, and they don't want to send orders out unless they're prepaid. So my expectation is that of a few things. One is that most of the orders will end up prepaid, and that by the time the licenses come out, which I don't think the licenses will be out until the earliest, probably August, September, because of the couple of hurdles they have to go through. We may have a banking bill in light of who's controlling the capital right now. And there is support on both sides of the aisle for doing something to allow marijuana businesses to access banking. So I think you're not going to see a lot of cash in these. The only cash you're going to see are tips.
So that brings up an interesting point from perspective of security, right? Like, I know that in the regulations you can only carry like $10,000 worth of marijuana, I believe, right? So if your drivers do start to get cash or they're getting tips, like at what point do you kind of say, hey, you need to bring it back? Or are you going to have a safe in the van or the vehicle for them to put it in?
Even though it may not be a lot of money, any cash in the vehicle has to go, and it's a separate safe too. So there's one safe for the marijuana and then another one for cash. So even the minute amount of tips would have to go.
Mhm.
in the lockup.
Are there regulations on like any signage or logos that are on the delivery vehicles, or they have to be discreet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the regulations are nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Okay. And the plan, Nick, from what you guys said, you're going to house them in the back, or you're hoping to put them behind the building, so it's not like somebody could easily identify them unless they really knew it was back there. Right. Okay.
Correct.
That was a lot of good information. I had a question too, but I lost it in the conversation. Oh, I know what I was going to ask, because I'm going to do this for my fellow residents. It sounds like you have some leeway with the with delivery fees, that there's not like a restriction on them or any sort of regulation. Like, are there opportunities to have free delivery for those folks who might be in the 02766 zip code, or some of our closer communities?
It's possible, definitely. You know, we definitely, we're competing against like Lantern, who their whole model is offering free delivery to customers. So it's definitely something that we want to try to do for sure.
It's certainly an interesting concept. And it's, you know, it seems somewhat odd to me, because like just recently they've been able to, you know, deliver like wine and liquor from stores. So it's unique for sure. Any other questions or comments? Okay, this was great, guys. It was really informative. I appreciate it, and certainly the preparation and you know, answering the questions too. Definitely helped a lot, because this is something that's fairly new. I mean, I know we had a lot of information sharing during the retail process, and us going through the bylaw to figure out what we want to do to be, you know, in a position where we can attract companies, as well as make sure we were doing the right thing for the town. So this is certainly helpful. Michael,
Thank you for. Oh.
Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I thought you were closing. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask Michael if he wanted to make his motion now.
Yeah, hold on a minute. Sorry, I'd like to make a motion to approve Lucky Green Ladies for a marijuana courier service within town, to be recommended to the Board of Selectmen.
Seconded.
Does somebody want to modify that language, because you're not looking for a courier license?
Delivery
Okay.
operator license.
Delivery operator license, if I could just correct my motion, thank you.
Seconded.
Hold on 1 second. For discussion, my question is, do we want to see, prior to full recommendation to the select board, the plan once they identify that with Gator on what the establishment will look like?
I was gonna say, I don't feel like I personally am ready to vote right now on moving forward. I knew that this was on the agenda for today, but I don't think I understood the scope of what was being asked. So I haven't had a chance to do any background research into the Massachusetts regulations and stuff like that. So I don't feel prepared to vote at the moment.
So are you abstaining, Denise?
Correct.
Okay, any other discussion? Hold on, I have to write my list of people. That's the delay. Did I hear an answer on looking at the proposal prior to moving it to the select board?
I think that makes sense, Renee. I would support that.
Then it should say the withdraw, then I should withdraw my motion.
You can withdraw, or we can vote it down, and then wait for the following.
I'll withdraw.
The additional information. Okay, I think do I need a second? I think I need a second on the withdrawal.
On the withdrawal, the motion, you don't need.
I think so.
No, you don't.
Well, it was supported. No?
The person that made the motion can withdraw at any time.
With a support? I don't know the fancy dancy inner workings here. Denise?
Robert's rules.
I'll second it. I'll second it just to be on the safe side, Renee.
Okay.
Now that the motion's off the table, may I speak?
You may.
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt your discussion, but I think, there are some towns that are, never mind a delivery operation, but are approving host community agreements without a location at all. And that's a host community agreement. What we're seeking tonight is a recommendation to the select board to enter into host community agreement negotiations. So at that point, we will most likely have the site locked in and secure prior to the execution of the host community agreement. But at this point, what we're seeking is the Economic Development Committee, specifically this marijuana subcommittee's recommendation to the select board, so that we can keep moving with the process and get the host community agreement negotiations underway. I think that at the end of the day, we're not talking about a retail store where you're dealing with traffic and you're dealing with a lot of ins and outs with respect to the location. What we're talking about is a closed space that's going to have some vehicles. And if you read the application, the vehicles are going to be out the whole day. It's not like they're coming and going all day long. So it's not traffic in that regard. So that the location itself is not completely secured as to which unit at the Gator Plaza. I think it would be helpful for Lucky Green Ladies' benefit to move the process forward and get that recommendation over to the select board now, so that we're not in a holding pattern as we negotiate the host community agreement.
So Nick, I'm going to respond with two hats onto that. The first is the marijuana retail subcommittee. It doesn't exist. That was specific for the RFI process. It is
Okay.
just the EDC right now, and you're right with the recommendation. I can tell you that we've received another HCA for a cultivation facility without an address, and I kicked it back that we want an address. But in order for this, I can tell you right now, if it goes to the select board, the questions are going to be, what does the EDC feel about it? And if there's questions on not having an opportunity to review the regulations or wanting to see the design of what the building is and understand the location, it's going to delay further. So, from our perspective, the EDC and the select board, we meet every other week. So it's not going to propose a delay. I would put the information together as you expect to present it to the select board, allow the EDC to review that and ask questions and opine, and then support it. So, don't think of this as a delay, because it's not like we can't get it on the agenda fairly quickly once it's supported. But I do think, right now that there's some unanswered questions. I would like to see what the design of that looks like. You're switching locations, so it's not like we're looking at an apples to apples and we can say, well, we are familiar with it through the former retail application, because that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, I would counter that if she's proposing just a different space within the same plaza and just smaller, we have viewed her plans and her security detail, and she's already determined that that is going to be the same. So I understand some people haven't read through it yet, but I'm comfortable. If she plans on staying within Gator and the warehousing and the security ops are all still the same, I'm fine.
Well, we already withdrew the motion, so unless you want to put another motion through, and like I said, and I'll be honest with you, from a select board perspective, like if I don't have the information that I feel comfortable, and I don't feel like the EDC is fully comfortable with it, right? I will voice that to the select board, because I think everybody has the right to make sure that the information is presented in its entirety. And it's, again, another process.
I do. I think everybody should be prepared to discuss what's on the agenda, and this information was provided a month ago. So I think we should get everybody up to speed and have a vote at the next meeting.
And Renee, I'm sorry, I don't disagree with you. Of course, nobody should vote on something that they're not fully informed on. I guess I was misunderstanding that the select board will really appreciates that the EDC does the deep dive into the understanding of the work, and then you make the recommendation and then they're good to go. Whereas in some towns, the process is different, where the select board is also engaged in the process and is diving deep. So what I'm hearing from you, and I understand it, is it sounds like the EDC's job is to fully vet the project, and if vetted and happy with the project and proposed to the select board doesn't need to get into those minutia details of the project, and that's why the EDC would like a little more time. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, and that's not to say that we wouldn't still ask you to come to the select board and present similar to how you did the first time, right? But it wouldn't be going into the details that you would with this group. And I think, and again, it's one of the reasons why, we don't necessarily have anything written that says you have to come to EDC first, but we, from the select board, have pushed things back. I know, Nick, you weren't on earlier, but, we've had conversations about alcohol licenses, and the select board pushed it back to say, we want the EDC to look at this before. And there have been cases and other things, Paul has come to me as well, where even the planning board has said, we want the EDC to look at this. And it, from our perspective, I think it's, I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable, that they have the information, and regardless of Laura, I understand your point. It was sent out a month ago, but that doesn't mean that we can't have people take additional time to look. And I don't know, I don't remember from the application when I read it if there's a link back to the CCC regulations. I don't believe I ever sent that out. So, that could be something I can send to direct people right to that information, so we can look at the regulations.
So Renee, so you're pretty much looking for, I don't know if you remember, I did the security footprint or drawing of the building, and then where all the cameras would face and all the locked doors. Are you looking for something like that for the new space?
Something so we'd understand how it's set up. I imagine with the vehicles being in the back that your intent is to have your main foot traffic through the back of the door, right? But we'll want to understand that in a little more detail. And then what do you do with the storefront too? Does it just, I don't know what the requirements are. Does it have to be similar to retail where you can't see inside the store? Will it, what are you going to do there? Those, I think, are going to be just some basic questions that will help us. And certainly if anybody else has any questions that they would want to specifically see that we saw before, I'm not as concerned with things like the traffic study, but again, this is going to still go through the same process. So the special permit process will require that anyway. But that doesn't, that particularly doesn't weigh heavily in this regard, because to your point, you're going to have a small fleet of vehicles and they will be gone most of the day.
So Renee, can I weigh in? I
Sure.
personally ready to recommend it tonight. So I'm not sure why the motion was withdrawn. I'm perfectly comfortable with voting on it tonight. I'm happy to make a motion again if we want to see if.
Well, the motion was withdrawn for two reasons, right? It was withdrawn to see the footprint, to understand what the location is, and also to have an opportunity to look at the regulations in more detail.
Yeah, but,
okay, but again,
another
if
motion.
everybody agrees with that, why can we vote on it? And Michael, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I cut you off actually, so please, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just not, knowing that I don't know that everyone agrees with delaying it necessarily. So that's why I would like to see a vote on it.
And I would absolutely, I'm ready to prepare to send this to the select board as well.
So you withdrew and now we want another motion.
I withdrew it just out of courtesy to kind of revamp the conversation. I'm ready to make a motion to.
So
I'd like to make a motion to send this to the select board, the recommendation from the EDC to the select board for, what's the name of the business? I want to call it a courier business. It's not a courier. What is
Operator.
Delivery operator.
it? Delivery operator. I would like to make that motion to send it to the our recommendation.
So Mike, I think The question is, are we comfortable sending it to the board without a definitive location identified?
I personally am, yes. That's why I think
Okay,
based on the
yeah.
information I've heard tonight, based on, everything we've heard up until this point, then yes, I'm perfectly comfortable with sending it forward to the select board.
And Mike, to be honest with you, if this was a retail spot, I would be like, no way, right? It would be no way. This is delivery. The public isn't going in there. As far as I'm concerned, it could be in back of the VFW, right? It doesn't really, for me, the location doesn't matter. The concept of the business really does matter for me. That's my own opinion.
I guess
That's
that,
my own opinion.
and that goes back to the point, Michael, that I talked about with, everything that's referenced within the application is a warehouse. And as they said, that's also the reference within the regulations, right? And this is a retail area. So, I mean, again, anything that's come to us at this point from an HCA perspective without an application, it doesn't even get to the select board. So I'll caveat that because there'll be a gating point for it.
Right, and so I guess my point is, I know that the select board will vet that location. I'm comfortable with that personally, so that's why I would recommend moving it forward at this point, and putting it, and recommending it to the select board they can certainly send back and not make their decision until the location is chosen, but I don't need that myself to make the recommendation.
I would agree.
So did anybody second Michael's? If not, I second.
I gotta write names. Stand by.
I'm gonna get you a PDF.
Michael, you get that. You
just
set
have the names.
You get the record for sending a motion forward the most number of times on the same night for the same thing.
I got whiplash.
I'm missing.
Thank you, Mike, for pointing out
Hold
my.
I gotta look at my board. 1,
You're
2,
persistent.
3, 5, 7.
I would also like to point
That's
out
the best thing that's been said about me.
the details of the regulations are linked within Alyssa's proposal that she submitted a month ago.
I would accept that.
So I checked my inbox. I did not get it. Was it sent to me, or maybe it went to my norton.us mailbox?
Let me look, Denise, a minute right now. Well, it didn't come from me.
No, I looked for Alyssa and I'm not seeing it, but
Denise, it went to your Norton, Mass address.
yeah,
that's
why.
the problem.
So
we know that address doesn't work.
I think it's a great proposal. I completely support the idea. I'd love if the location was pinned down. If that's the only open item, then I will defer. I will abstain from the vote.
I didn't ask for your vote yet, Mike.
I understand that. I'm just having a conversation.
Out loud.
By the way, just so you know, mute is off, Mike. Mute is off.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate that.
Okay, so let's do roll call vote. Michael?
Aye.
Sandy?
Yes.
Mike?
Massini?
Yes, Mike Massini.
I will abstain.
Denise?
Abstain.
What was that, Denise?
Sorry, abstain.
Okay, Laura?
Yes.
Sharon? Sharon Rice?
Yes, sorry, I was muted.
That's okay.
Yes.
Would you say, Sharon?
I said yes.
Okay. And I'm going to say no. So that passes with 4, 1 nay, and 2 abstentions. Okay. So any questions? So Nick and Alyssa, again, you'll have to get the HCA in order and the other information. It'll, like I said, that needs to go to Mike, and then it'll be reviewed by myself and Mike at that point.
Thank you. And I understand your concerns, Renee. I think it's harder for Alyssa and I because we've been in these spaces and we know how cookie cutter they all are and they're all kind of look the same. It's just where in the plaza it actually is. So I understand your
That's fine.
point, but we will.
I mean, I expect when you come with the HCA that you're going to have the location pinned down and you'll have the other information. But because the EDC hasn't reviewed that information, I'll be recommending to the select board that they do that. So it'll be a longer process with the select board.
Okay.
That's right, because I live next door to the plaza and I walk by there and there are lots of empty spaces, and it was a far cry back when it was a thriving mall back in the 90s.
Thank you, Peter.
And Renee,
Okay.
I do have one more question. This one's a little bit unrelated. So I was hearing the discussion about the liquor license earlier in the meeting, and if Norton gets another liquor license, then they have room for another retail location. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that I had preference on the next license from the select board. Is that still?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, we voted that should one of the first two not come to fruition, or we have the ability to obtain additional licenses, that will be offered to you guys.
Okay.
And
then, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, I was going to add in, Alyssa, because that would influence how which space is chosen for which operation. So obviously the location that was chosen for the retail was the prime premier retail location, which would have been great for that. It's not as good if you don't have a storefront and you don't need the foot traffic, which is why the location why we're anticipating shifting it for the delivery operator.
Gotcha.
It's tough, Michael. I agree with you. And so, but we will iron out those details and hopefully keep the option on the premier retail location open so that in the event that does open up with Norton, that Lucky Green Ladies can take advantage of that.
Yep, and we talked, Mike, I see you came back and unmuted. I know we talked about timeline, but if you want to give them any sort of idea on the timeline for that, even for the state to consider and recommend. That's not even our timeline to get stuff together.
I was going to say, I don't want to be negative on Gator, but I would bet that other space will be available for you if retail ever becomes open.
Maybe the whole plaza.
Let's hope it doesn't get to that. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate the information and the conversation. So I'll keep my eyes on my inbox for the next step.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for your support.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, what are we on time? So we're 9:21. We have 3 other topics. I think we could probably push these to the next meeting, but I'll put that out to the group because we have the review of town-owned land, the business survey and the business guide that Denise had sent. Well, we did the business guide that Denise had sent, and then Michael had the business survey, and then we don't actually have anything on the approval of minutes. Do you guys want to keep going for the last 2 topics, or end here and move those to the next meeting?
Punt.
I'd make a recommendation to move to the next meeting.
Okay.
That's my own personal opinion, but I'm not the dictator of the meeting.
Nope. If anybody disagrees, I had a punt and an opinion shared.
Sounds good.
So, okay, so we'll move those.
Madam Chair, that was very formal.
that was the punt.
By the way, do you think we'll ever see Denise again?
Not if it's during pickup time and cooking dinner time.
Okay, fine, Denise.
So our next meeting is slated for Wednesday, February 10th. That'll be, I didn't put the time on here, but it'll be 7 p.m. We have 2 items on the agenda now, the MassDOT rezoning that Paul will have actually MassDOT come and talk to us about, and he'll give us an overview as well. And then the reorganization, then I'll move the review of town-owned land, and then the business survey and business guide status to that meeting as well. Okay, and the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Was that Mike on the second?
Yes.
Okay, give me a second again. I don't know that, I can't remember the last time that we had 7 people. It's fantastic.
We have new blood. We have new blood. They're gonna learn quickly.
I'm missing somebody though, every time I write the names.
Name's Michael Toole.
No, I had
Not easy being
him.
a tool.
Okay, so roll call. Denise,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Massini, Sandy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Michael,
Nay.
Sharon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries 6-1. That ends our meeting at 9:24. Thank you guys so much. We'll talk in 2 weeks.